Hey guys, welcome back to Absolutely Preposterous Sports. I'm your host, Richard Biggs. Today we are joined by, as always, our executive MLB analyst, Michael Salmon. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
We are joined also by my future ex-wife, Nikki Biggs. Nicole, how you doing?
Doing very well on this fine morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. And we are joined by the massive Bambino. How are you doing, Eli?
Wow. I'm just doing freaking tastic. If I said I was doing horribly, I'd be lying to you.
Amen. All right, topic number one for the day. It's our year. Mycicle, you have been with me for many, many years on the Boys in Blue. How does it feel knowing that we finally did it after claiming it was our year for the last 8 years?
Listen, I could not. I was in awe. I was in awe. I couldn't believe they actually did it. After watching all these years of baseball, all the years of Dodgers choking, I can't believe they finally did it.
We
But
finally got over the hump. What did you think
finally did.
after the NLCS when Doc said it's our year? Did you believe him, or did you think he was just hoping and praying like he does every year?
Well, I thought he was gonna. I've seen too many World Series games blown by Dave Roberts to have any other opinion. But at the same time, he did get a little lucky here and there, because Kevin Cash out Dave Roberts.
Out Dave Roberts, Dave Roberts. That's going to be our one of our last sections. We're going to talk about how Dave Roberts did the most un-Dave Roberts thing ever, and Cash took his mantle for the greatest mismanaging of a World Series game ever. All right, so Nikki and Eli, you guys are not Dodgers fans. How do you feel as outside baseball fans that the Boys in Blue finally won it?
Honestly,
Oh,
Eli, you can go first.
No, Nikki. I insist.
All right, thank you. Um, as a pretty hardcore Giants fan, I at first was a little opposed to it, but just seeing how they always get just ripped off every year, I feel like when they're in the World Series or in the postseason, they're always doing so well and something doesn't go their way and they kind of get robbed. And I feel bad for all the years of that I was like, I'm kind of rooting for them. And I know you guys really like the Dodgers, so I had to give them a little bit of my heart this year.
now I want to follow that up really quickly. Nikki, you were with me in Game 5. Game 5 was the heartbreaker, right, Mycicle? I'm not misremembering.
Game
It was Game 4.
was.
Game 4.
Game
You were with
4.
me in Game 4. I was so excited the whole game. What was the enjoyment that you got from seeing my face on that final play when I almost murdered my whole family?
Honestly, it was really funny, but it was also heartbreaking. I felt so bad because I knew, like, I don't even know how that happened. They had everything was going their way, and just the two errors in the last play of the game. I honestly didn't believe it at first. I was like, that's not how the game's ending, right? Like, that's not it. But it was
But
just, it didn't,
sometimes that's just
honestly
how it
didn't feel
ends.
real.
Now,
It was,
Eli, as
Hmm.
an A's fan, correct?
Mm-hmm.
We can both relate on postseason, let's say, underperformances.
Of
How do
course,
you
some disappointment.
How do you feel knowing that one of the biggest postseason disappointments of a franchise finally got over the hump, and how does that give you promise for your team's potential to get over the hump in years to come?
Well, it's always promising to see unsuccessful teams be successful. It goes to show that, any team can do it really. I mean, the A's had, correct me if I'm wrong, the best regular season going into the playoffs. And
Uh,
then
They were the second best team just behind the Rays in the American League.
no, just behind the fucking Rays.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Still a great season though.
the Cubs did it in 2016 after like not have having won a World Series in like what, like 100 years or something.
Yep.
And we're always seeing new teams pop up in the postseason every season, and it's not a bad thing for the A's to consistently pop up in the playoffs, even though they keep losing. So I think it just goes to show that maybe this year was Southern California's year, but maybe the trophy's got to come back to the Bay Area on the right side of the pond.
Yeah, right you are.
oh
I'm
yeah,
thinking on the peninsula side of the bay.
oh, a little bit of beef here. A
oh,
little bit of beef here.
Little
All right, we're gonna
storms are brewing.
we're gonna move on. Corey Seager got the MVP, and arguably rightfully so. But who was the real MVP, Mycicle?
My MVP is always the boy, Dustin May.
Now,
am I allowed to swear on this?
Yes, you're more than welcome to use the
Fuck
most.
yeah!
Fuck!
Fuck!
2 after 4.
Fuck!
Dustin May has one of the most classic lines in all of baseball, arguably right behind "My guys are savages in the box." So
These two most legendary quotes. Yep.
Dustin May in Game 4 had an ERA of 20.25. How do you justify a 20.25 ERA deserving of an MVP? Is it just analytics? Is the game changing?
Yeah, it's just analytics, bro. You just wouldn't understand.
Fair enough.
He's the future of the Dodgers.
His sabermetrics were just too powerful. I don't understand it. I'm more of a analytics person myself.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Nikki, MVP. Who was it?
Shadow's putting in his opinion, so I'll tell him. He says that the man himself, Mr. Max Muncy,
Maximilian Muncy,
for being such a thickums, you know, and that's my reason. Even though he did fuck up Game 4?
Yep.
It was a legendary throw to the plate.
Bro. Yeah.
Legendary. He's number one thickest.
I'd like to
book.
interject real quick. How does Kershaw make a better play at the plate than Max Muncy? Kershaw avoids the balk and then throws an accurate little dinger down into the dish, but Max Muncy throws it behind the bag.
It's absurd.
It is absurd. Eli, MVP.
Now, I actually have an interesting history with players on the Dodgers in this season. Because when I was drafting my fantasy team, I was sitting down there with my dad. He was helping me, think about who I should be picking in the earlier rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not going to lie, I had basically the entirety of the A's infield by like the middle of the draft. But I knew I probably should have got a good first pick. And he's like, hey, how about Mookie Betts? I'm like, what kind of a fucking name is Mookie Betts, first off?
Well, longtime viewers of the channel know that Cookie has been in some of our earlier videos, and he is a joy to have
He's a stud
on our team. But continue.
But he said, how about Mookie Betts? And I was like, that's probably not a bad idea. But then I looked in the rest of the league, and there was a guy who made his team name in all caps, Mookie Betts is king. And he had the 4th pick, and I had the 3rd pick. So I said, perfect. I know exactly who I'm going to pick. Now, despite his performance and being able to, hurl freaking field-covering balls from all the way outfield with, no momentum, I still got to give the MVP to Justin Turner.
Oh, the COVID king.
Now here's the reason. A, he's tanking COVID for the rest of his team, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yes, not spreading it, tanking it.
That's an unsung hero right there. If he didn't get COVID, this Game 6 wouldn't have happened.
I agree. Him getting COVID and getting taken out in the 7th inning put Edwin Rios at 3rd, and everyone knows Edwin Rios has a fantastic glove in the hot corner.
He does.
Not only his talents for catching baseballs and catching coronavirus, but when you pull up to the game, you always see those big names. I bet everyone was pulling up to the Dodgers game thinking, "Oh fuck, Mookie Betts, Clayton Kershaw, Cody Bellinger, we're fucked." But then they forget about the fucking big ass redheaded
Red Rifle
walking through the clubhouse, and you got to think, "Oh fuck." Thank God he didn't get to use the full % of his power because he got coronavirus.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, it probably could have ended in 3 if he was healthy. I agree.
That's what I'm saying. You get a Viking up there, it's like, what else are you gonna do?
He did have a knack for extending at bats. Probably his ability to catch coronavirus helped in his ability to spot those balls coming in a little inside to get some balls and then foul tip away to extend. I think his ability to see microscopic organisms really helped with his eye at the plate. Now, my MVP, I have a co MVP. You know, some years there was 3 MVPs. Like I believe in '81. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mycicle. There was
Well,
a,
there may
a
be.
3-way split for MVP when the Dodgers won in '81. But
Oh.
my co MVPs are Enrique Hernandez, the Puerto Rican machine. Didn't necessarily play better than anyone, but definitely shorter and cuter than the rest. And Kevin Cash of the Rays is my 2020 World Series MVP for making the most idiotic managing decision since any managing decision that Dave Roberts has ever made by taking out Blake Snell.
Yep.
And that leads
And,
us
you know,
directly into
Wait,
our
wait, wait.
next. Yes.
Before we move on, and there's one crucial member of the Dodgers lineup who may not have gotten his chance to shine in the World Series, but
If
earlier
you say
in the
Gavin
season,
Lux, I'm gonna die.
but earlier in the season, made a
Okay.
more than beneficial sacrifice and did a duty for not only the Dodgers
Strasburg.
but the entirety of Major League Baseball. And I think at this point you know who it is. It's Joe Kelly.
I was
No,
thinking about wearing my Joe Kelly Fight Club T-shirt on Game 6, but I couldn't muster
How could you
myself.
forget our hero?
We like to think about MVPs as the best players playing, but sometimes we also have to think about
That's
the
a
MVPs
good
as the best
point. We have to
players.
think about the best players not playing.
That's true.
That brings up
That's
a very
galaxy
valid
brain right there.
That is
Whoa.
very Galaxy Brain. All right, that's going to lead us into our next section. We're going to talk about Cash, the manager of the Rays, making the most Dave Roberts managing decision to pull Blake Snell after 5 1/3, right before he was about to face the lineup for the 3rd time. Now, Mycicle, you are the best geared to talk about the analytics of that decision, whether or not it was a good choice. It obviously wasn't. But when he's looking at his numbers, he's looking at his spreadsheet, what goes through his mind when he makes that decision?
Well, you know, it's honestly hard to say. Kevin Cash, usually a man that's analytically driven, did not make the analytically driven decision this time. Mookie Betts he struck out twice against Snell the previous 2 at-bats. And Betts has been much better against right-handed pitchers all year. So
That is
I
a
don't
good
know.
point.
I'm no math major, but
You're no
know.
financial math major, but
but
now that raises an
the-
interesting point. Snell hadn't played more than 5 1/3 or 5 2/3 inning all season and postseason. So
That
could it
is
be
true.
argued that it was just the natural progression of the game, or is it those high leverage moments where you have to let your star players be stars?
It's one of those moments where he should have left him in. He had a low pitch count, like he's
73,
been
I
their
think.
workhorse. Yeah, exactly. Like he's been their workhorse all year. You gotta let him go.
Nikki, how do you feel about the decision that Cash made to pull Snell after 5 1/3?
I think it was the greatest decision he could have ever made.
Why do you say that?
Incredible. Because he's an idiot, and that was, in his mind, it was a great decision. But in other people's minds, it may have not been the best decision.
Now, are you insinuating that he took notes from one of the great managers of our era, Dave Roberts, and took out his workhorse to put in a reliever who gives up runs?
I think he really studied his technique, and he's been perfecting it, and he really just his moment right then, he really showed us how much work he's been putting in, practicing, trying to follow in his footsteps.
He
I'd have
really
to
does-
agree. I think he really studied the art of war, Sun Tzu, when you're strong, appear weak, when you're weak, appear strong, and he knew that he was strong. So he knew that because he was strong, he needed to appear weak, thus taking out his only hope of winning and putting in a reliever that had an ERA of like 5. Really galaxy brain decision. Eli, how do you feel about the decision to take out arguably your best player on your entire roster, maybe behind a Rosarina? But how do you feel about the decision to take away your best player and put in a reliever that all statistics show is pretty bad in the postseason?
Of course. Now, I have a favorable history of admiring many closers for the Oakland Athletics, but there's two big takeaways I have from this decision that we saw. First, correct me if I'm wrong. He was pulled out in the Snell was pulled out in the 5th inning.
Yeah. Well, I guess he pitched the first 5 innings because they wanted to make sure that he could get credit for the win if they were to win it. But he pitched a third of an inning, gave up a single, and I think they pulled him right after that.
Okay, so then we needed to have a discussion with Kevin Cash's wife to make sure she's on the same page that Kevin Cash himself isn't always this much of a guy to finish things early, like Blake Snell's appearance in the World Series. That's my first takeaway. But the second takeaway that we have to really look critically about this is our understanding of there being less of an appearance of androgenic anabolics in baseball. Now, because of this, we're seeing pitchers get tired out by whatever it was, the 5th inning. If androgenic anabolics were in baseball, we'd be able to see, probably no relief pitchers, and pitchers be able to last for entire World Series games. And not only that, we'd be seeing scores skyrocket. And these pussies at USADA think that's a cool thing to just ban every sport from drugs. Oh, but Barry Bonds was too good. Yeah, that's what the people want to see. So
you got to give the people what they want.
I think we need to take a step back and start considering the reintroduction of drugs. Maybe each team can have 3 players.
Oh, you think similar to a designated hitter, you can have a designated Reuter?
Designated Reuter. The DR.
The DR.
He's always in the batting
The
cage.
pinch Reuter. Does that mean you get a pinch Reuter if you can pull him up from the minors?
A pinch Reuter.
Yeah,
Let's actually delve into this.
Gotta use the Donkey Kong rule. He's gotta use the punching bag
Let's
glove.
start with the Rays. I think it's clear the designated Reuter would have to be G-Man Choi. Does anyone have any argument that the designated Reuter would be anyone other than the Korean
well, they
Jesus
already have
himself?
their designated Reuter is Randy Arozarena coming and hitting 10 home
Give me a
runs
second.
as a rookie out of nowhere.
Oh, G-Man Choi.
G-Man
Yeah,
Choi got Mookie Betts out by doing the splits. G-Man Choi is 240 pounds. That
Yep.
if there was ever
260, actually.
If you put,
I think he'd actually weighed in at
also put Ryan
288,
Thompson
but
on because he has a crazy mustache.
Oh, got it.
all right. Now, obviously, I think we have to agree Max Muncy, the designated Reuter from the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Right.
100%.
Well, it could
I
be
was
Turner. That's my stance.
Oh,
I
Turner
think
would be a good
Max-
second option.
Can we talk quickly, Mystical, about Max Muncy's efficiency in this World Series, getting walked
Yes.
record numbers of times? I think his ability to stand in the box with a gut the size of the other side of the box really distorted the strike zone. It really threw off the depth perception of the pitcher and the umpire alike, allowing him to just rack up walks.
I agree. And I also believe that Max Muncy, he was in the box just looking for walks, Didn't seem like he wanted to hit at all.
Do you think he was too out of shape to maybe run to first base, and he would prefer to walk there instead?
I think maybe he had a little bit of a Cody's pregame ritual, if you know what I mean.
Did you see the classic picture of Adderall versus weed with Kike Hernandez standing on the dugout and Cody Bellinger not understanding that he just won the World Series?
Let's just say Max Muncy might have hit a belly bomb.
A belly bomb. All right, so we
Andrew,
talked.
that's a really good point though about taking so many walks, and to quote a famous baseball film about the Oakland Athletics, Moneyball.
Now available on
You
Netflix.
gotta
Use
realize
code
sometimes-
MASSIVEPP to get 25% off your monthly subscription. Sorry, I gotta pay the bills somehow.
Realize sometimes, and in the words of Brad Pitt himself, we don't care how he gets on base. We care that he gets on base.
Amen.
Amen, brother.
That's what
All right, we're
every
gonna-
Little League coach has ever said.
If it works for the kids, it works for the bigs, right?
Exactly.
All right, so we talked about Cash's terrible decision. Now can we talk about Snell's reaction? Personally, when Snell said "fuck you" to his manager while walking off of the little mound, I knew the game was over. Did you guys have the same conclusion?
Yes, I did. I knew they were gonna pull a Dodgers against the Dodgers.
If you can't beat them, replicate them and lose all the same.
I agree.
Nikki, how did you feel about Snell's reaction, especially his post-game conference where he talked about a desire to go maybe all 9 innings?
I think that he was reasonably upset. Wait, can we cut this?
Yeah, Eli's echoing.
I'm. Wait, so what was the question again? I was
Don't worry.
reading a Yahoo Sports thing to get educated.
It's okay. I'll restate the question. Don't worry.
And then, what should I say?
Just say it wasn't a strong enough reaction. He should have used more swear words or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Nikki, how did you feel about Snell's reaction post-game, especially when he said that he probably could have gone 9 innings, and I feel like he was trying really hard to not cuss out his manager?
Honestly, I think he had a reasonable. He was reasonable for him being upset, and I don't think he used enough cuss words. And I think he should have threw a little temper tantrum and like rolled around on the floor to really get his point across.
Do you think he should have poured the Gatorade out on the press conference desk?
100%. That would have been a sight to see.
Now, Mycicle, not talking about post-game reaction, during the game, do you think he should have punched his manager in the face to try to stay on the mound?
Yeah, I do. That's the only way you can get through to these managers nowadays, is with brute force.
Kind of like children, right? I mean,
I do not take a stance either way on that subject.
now, Eli, as a very powerful gentleman yourself, do you feel like a show of brute strength would have been a more effective way of trying to get your point across to your coach?
Of course. I mean, there's nothing that says "I love you" quite like a punch to the gut, a roundhouse to the face, a curb stomp, a trip, and then rolling him around in the dirt. So ultimately, from my standpoint, there were 3 options. That being the first one he could have done. The second is in protest. I believe, I don't remember which game this happened in, but I do remember a coach got ejected. I believe they were on the Reds. And what they had done was they had left the clubhouse, they had ran over to first base, and they had picked up first base and then left. That could have been a viable option as well. The game can't continue without its star player. It can't also continue the game without first base itself. Or you have your third option, which is a playbook out of the Mongolian wrestling coaches from the Rio Olympics, who during a bronze medal match protested a call in which the call was confirmed that their protest didn't go through. So in response, they decided to rip off all of their clothes, except for the underwear, of course. So, violence isn't always the answer,
but nudity is what you're saying.
Because ESPN prefers that the violence remain in hockey.
So do you think if he put on a pair of skates, he could have got away with it? Maybe 5 minutes in the penalty box.
Perhaps like some rollerblades, maybe. But definitely a fourth option that I'm now realizing too is he could have taken his because I assume he'll play at bat often. He's not only a pitcher.
No, he just pitches.
Okay, well, he could have taken one of his teammates, Louisville Sluggers, and then gone out to the to the parking lot
and
then
both headlights.
Both headlights of like either the bus or.
Do you think he would have continued to slash a hole in all 4 tires?
Yeah, or he just
maybe next time he'd think before he pulls me out of the game after 5 1/3.
Yeah, I mean that's the general consensus, but those are other alternatives I have. But I do like the original idea of just going full as the kids say nowadays, sicko mode and initiating with violence.
All right, so we've talked about the Rays side of the terrible decisions. Let's talk about Doc. Mycicle, I want to get your opinion on this. Someone just joined the call, and I don't know who it is.
Oh.
Is that
Hey.
Kyle Irving? All right, we are joined by executive NBA analyst Kyle Irving, but he also doubles as our backup MLB super analyst. Kyle, you've missed quite a lot, but we're currently talking about Dave Roberts and how he finally didn't Dave Roberts. Maybe you can actually, let's say, Mycicle, you worked under Dave Roberts for about 25 years. You even played with him in 2004 with Poppy. So,
that,
what do you think
I
about
did.
his decision to disregard everything he's ever done, all of the terrible decisions he's ever made, and go with Manalytics over analytics? Bicycle?
It's crazy. It's crazy that he finally adapted. He adapted this new trend in managerial style. I can't believe it.
Do you think he maybe watched Moneyball since it just dropped on Netflix, and he realized that Brad Pitt
I think he
can
might-
go choke on one, and that you just got to play your best players?
Yeah, exactly. If you have the money, you don't need to play like Moneyball. You can just play all your superstars every game.
Exactly. I sent you something the other night, and it was you can buy one entire pitching staff for the Rays with one Clayton Kershaw. Bicycle, what would you buy if you had one Clayton Kershaw?
If I had one Clayton Kershaw, I'd keep that Clayton Kershaw.
Ah, you think it will increase in value as it gets older?
That I do.
Or do you just need like a house worker?
No. He's gonna age like a fine wine, just like
Just like
our
A-Rod
guy,
said. A-Rod
Yeah.
said the same thing. Now, you played with A-Rod
That
as
he did.
well as
Great minds think alike.
Roberts, correct? You played with him in Seattle?
Yeah. Yes, that I did.
After teaching him everything you know, are you happy to see that he's blossomed into such a good post-game analyst for Fox?
It's something that I never thought would happen. That Derek Jeter would be the least liked player out of the two. Let's just say that.
All right, Nikki, I want to get your opinion on Roberts. He's definitely had an illustrious 5 years. Hasn't always ended in success, but it finally has. What do you think that does for his legacy as not only a baseball totality, but just as a manager? How do you think that affects his legacy finally getting over the hump? All right, thanks for joining us, Kyle Irving. Obviously, you have been really in tune with this World Series. Being a diehard being a diehard Yankees fan yourself, you're definitely not the nicest person, and you don't care about orphans. But how did you feel about Roberts' decision to give credit to other people besides himself?
See, personally, I would just be a selfish bastard. I would just take all the credit because it's my team, it's my win. I don't care if we spent most of the majority of the money on some superstars, multiple MVPs, definitely deserve to win multiple years in the Dodgers. But if I was him, I would take all the credit. I don't give a shit about the players. Doesn't matter. I'm just a supreme man. All right.
I'd have to agree. He definitely didn't take enough credit. Clearly, Julio Urias's fantastic pitching was all because of Roberts' motivational speech in the dugout. Now, Nicole, how do you feel about Roberts' decision to not kiss his wife until 27 minutes after the game finally ended?
He's a little bitch. What's wrong with him?
Wow.
Well, it's well known that his wife is a little stinky. Do you think that played into his decision, or do you think he was just caught up in the moment and wanted to be with the guys?
I think he did have a little bit of the feeling, World Series is for the boys. But, I mean, a stinky wife, I feel like just give her one little kiss and then chew some gum or something. A lot of people wearing masks, you might not even be able to notice.
I've definitely come in contact with similar situations, as a few people know. Eli, I want to get your opinion on the volume at which he yelled, "This is our year." Do you think he was trying to add insult to injury to the Rays, or do you think he was simply caught up in the nirvana of finally getting over the hump?
Wow. I can't believe you just used that word in a sentence.
Smells like teen spirit, my friend.
Volume.
That's what his wife smells like, teen spirit.
She needs some bleach.
Of course. She might have been in utero, if you know what I mean. But sorry. So this is where I'm gonna have to take my role as a sports analyst aside and put on my hat of a broologist. One might call me.
More of a, not so much a scientist, more like a bro, life science life bro.
life
science
science,
life.
neurobiology, practical pathology, stuff like that. So this is what we call a a uh, a boy abrasion or a boy celebration.
Mm.
And these are defined by all hormones just being at peak levels at a very unhealthy level, to the extent where if it were extended for, like, I don't know, an hour, it could lead to serious damage. And as a result, the body doesn't know how to process everything. So while it tries to deal with all these rising levels of hormones and putting everything in the right place, the rest of bodily functions just kind of like aren't necessarily regulated the same way they would by the brain, and rather by the increased levels of hormones. So testosterone rises up, and you got people saying, "This is our year." Yeah, you weren't saying that 6 months ago when your daughter got coronavirus, I bet. You got dudes pee in their pants, and they hold it just for long enough to where it's after they get drenched in Gatorade, because they don't want to look like
We've all been there. We have all been there. Now, you bring up an interesting point about this natural phenomenon that happens inside of the body. We all know the side effects of it. Immense celebration being the most outwardly visible effect, but also loss of taste, fever, coughing, need for a ventilator.
Don't forget the most important side effect that is perhaps the most prevalent and has the most lingering effect in males from ages 20 to like 35. And that is too much swag.
Interesting. Now, do you think this too much swag, combined with all of the other side effects, is the real cause of the concern for Justin Turner's coronavirus, or do you think he actually may have been weak enough to contract such a puny disease?
Well, to have too much swag, in conjunction at one point, one would imagine you'd also have to have too much sauce. So it's possible coronavirus could be transmitted through that way, but it was in Justin Turner's case who caught it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, it got lost in the sauce.
Man, sometimes when you're on the road in the bubble and you pull up to the hotel and you got different temptations coming your way, sometimes you just get lost in the sauce.
Now, you bring up an interesting point, Mystical. Getting lost. You bring up an interesting point, Mystical. Getting lost in the sauce. Do you think that's where his Game 5 test results got lost in the sauce? Because he tested positive in Game 5. Oh. Do you have an example for us?
Wait, what's going on?
I must have missed that. Let's continue. Mystical, you bring up getting lost.
We then had a contaminated sample.
Oh, because of the sauce.
They said pee in this cup for us, and it got contaminated. So his manager was like, we can't let them find out that he's using steroids. So let's slip COVID-19 in his pee test.
I see.
A little distraction.
A smoke screen.
Exactly.
Smoke and mirrors.
Now, Mystical, before we end here, because I am late for something very important, getting lost in the sauce, as you mentioned, do you think that's where his Game 5 test results went? Because it's starting to come out that he probably shouldn't have even played in Game 6. But I think the staff over at the Dodgers camp may have accidentally lost some results, forcing him to need another day of testing. Do you think that was as nefarious as people might insinuate, or do you think it was simply a harmless mistake?
My instincts tell me it was a harmless mistake, but the detective in me says otherwise.
Dodgers cheating in a World Series? Is that what we're thinking?
Further investigation is required.
A wise man once said, "It's not against the rules to take drugs. It's against the rules to get caught taking drugs."
I think wiser words have never been said. All right, with that, we end our baseball section of Absolutely Preposterous Sports. I've been your host, Richard Biggs, and as always, we've been joined by MLB analyst Mystical Salmon, late entry Kyle Irving, Nikki Biggs, and the massive Bambino himself, Eli, 2,500-pound raw total. I'll see you guys later.